person using a special electronic device such as the Oculus Rift. It does this by tracking the movements that you make while wearing the device, interacting with them to allow you to look around in a virtual world. Instead of using colors or images that appear in different planes like they do in the movies, they use something called stereoscopic 3D. And this is two different images, one for each eye of the same image, but it's slightly at a different angle, just like you would perceive something in the real world with your natural eyes, which creates a more natural experience. And as you may know, virtual reality and 3D technology has just been touched on in the gaming world. You've seen 3D TVs, and you can turn the 3D on and off. And you've also seen some gaming consoles have 3D games, which are very slightly 3D. And these are offered to the public, but nobody's really used stereoscopic 3D technology in high definition. The Oculus Rift will be available for purchase at the end of 2014 and will completely revolutionize the gaming industry. Oculus VR was founded by a man named Palmer Luckey. He worked as an engineer for the University of Southern California and the Institute of Creative Technologies. He contributed to the development of virtual reality systems and head-mounted displays before splitting and creating Oculus VR. The VR stands for virtual reality, and they're a virtual reality technology company, and the first product is the Oculus VR. As many new companies start out, they started a Kickstarter campaign, which is a website or an app that new companies, or basically anybody, can use to create a pitch for their product. And it's open to the public, so the public can see it and can decide if they want to offer their finances and help pay for the project. Oculus Rift was very, very popular on Kickstarter, and they raised $250,000 in just the first 4 hours and easily reached their $2.4 million deadline.
Hello guys, my name is Aisa, and I will be talking to you about the Facebook buyout. So Facebook announced on March the 25th that it was going to purchase the Oculus for $2 billion, which includes $400 million in cash and $23.1 million in common stocks of Facebook, which comes to $1.6 billion in cash. So the reason why they wanted to buy it is because they believe that it is the next generation of technology, the technology field. So they're trying to make sure that they will be the one, shaping the entire industry. So one of the examples why they would want to do it is rather than going on Facebook and posting a status or pictures, your friends will actually be able to be there with you and experience everything, the sounds and the images. So this is following their other acquisitions such as Instagram or WhatsApp for $19 billion. And the reason why the Facebook online community was not pleased is because they already believe that Facebook is not private enough, and by allowing them to use the Oculus, it would put people more at risk of not being able to protect themselves. Besides the Facebook, there are other fields that are interested in it. We have the NASA, we have the military training, and we also have the education and then the medical field. When it comes to the NASA, they have put in place simulators, which will allow the astronauts to be able to go on Mars and be able to experience how it feels to be on the red planet. Then when it comes to the military training, it is to allow them to be all on the same network, which will allow them to know exactly who are their friends and who are their enemies. Then attending the lecture, for instance, the example that came up the most was the languages. It will allow you to be able to learn the language faster because, as you may know, you have to be in the environment to be able to talk to different people. So being able to be there to put yourself in a certain particular city and being able to talk to different people will allow you. And then when it comes to the doctors, in certain countries such as developing countries, it is expensive to have doctors coming from different countries. So being able to use the Oculus will be able to have doctors in the USA will be able to be here and participate in a surgery in different countries.
All right, I'm going to be talking about whether or not Oculus Rift is the next generation of gaming, which is a question that's come up a lot recently. You're looking at some reasons why yes is probably a good answer for that. The first is games. There's over 170 games currently supported for the Oculus Rift tech, and new games are being added all the time. The support for Oculus Rift comes in two ways. There's mods and there's patches for already existing games, and then there's native support for games coming out. Skyrim and Team Fortress 2, which are the big Elder Scrolls release, and then the Valve, very popular multiplayer game, are good examples of the mods and patch releases for pre-existing games. And if you look here at this radar that has upcoming Q1 games, and all of these have native support. Next up, I'm going to be talking about the developers. The developers are really key to gaming technology because they hold the keys to what software gets made. And as far as software goes, that's really what determines the success. Oculus Rift enjoys a wide variety of developers, both large and small, corporate, individual. A good example of some of the smaller individual kind of developers that are out there is on their Steam community group for the Oculus Rift, which hosts dozens of like homebrew projects and stuff like that. Really just kind of one-off projects. Some of the bigger stuff though coming out is there's new physics engines being developed. Crytek, which is the company that made the really popular Crysis 2 and Crysis franchise, they've just come out with a new physics engine. Physics engines, for those that don't know, are how gaming software resolves anything moving. So the grass, the water, any kind of physical movement in a three-dimensional space is handled by a physics engine. And they just came out with one called the Cry engine, which I think is developed specifically to integrate with Oculus Rift technology, which is cool. Other developers like filmmakers and artists are coming and becoming more interested in game technology. David Attenborough, who's a film director, has just announced that he's probably going to be making a documentary using the Oculus Rift, which is really neat to think of. A three-dimensional film. I'm not sure how that would work, but it sounds really intriguing, doesn't it? There's other independent projects. I don't know if any of you are a Seinfeld fan, but that bottom picture right there might be a little familiar to you. That's Jerry Seinfeld's apartment. That's a 3D recreation of Jerry Seinfeld's apartment. So if you own an Oculus Rift, you can put that on, kind of enter Jerry's world. You sit in his couch and maybe make yourself something to eat. Now, the two things that really make Oculus Rift successful is immersion and the sense of presence. Now, for any virtual reality experience to be successful, it has to have believability. And these are the two key things to that. There's just 4 key points that really make Oculus Rift, that set it apart from other virtual reality attempts that have been previously done. And that's first, the low latency head tracking. Now, the Oculus Rift tracks the head in 3 different axes. Anyway, the low latency part is really key though. That means when you're watching something, let's say you hear something in your right ear and something's just a big crash, when you turn your head and you want to check that out, there's not going to be any lag between what your movement and what you're seeing, because that's something that would instantly break that kind of immersion. The next is the stereoscopic 3D, which Melanie covered, and that's your eyes they see the world with 2 different inputs. They see 2 images at a time, and your brain composites those into a 3-dimensional. That's what gives us our sense of depth and our depth of field. So Oculus works on the same principle. It has 2 different displays that show your eye 2 different images. And third is the wide field of view. That photo up there, that photo on the top shows some of the previous developments, which only had 110 degrees of field of view. Oculus Rift has a persistent field of view that spans beyond your peripheral vision. So there's never a point where you're looking that you don't see that new reality. And then lastly is the high quality 3D rendering. New graphics technology is capable of coming up with some really crazy quality that is really uncanny, and that picture of the gentleman there is just an example of that. I'm going to pass it over to Ken.
I'm Kenwin, and I'm going to be talking about the future of VR. For instance, Project Morpheus was created by Sony Incorporated. It's part of the PlayStation team's idea at another Oculus, as you can see. It looks just like the original headset of the Oculus. Basically, what the Morpheus does the same thing, simulates virtual reality. The only difference there is between that and Oculus is that PlayStation 4 backs the Morpheus and giving them a platform and a console to work off of. PlayStation has been in the gaming community for a long time now. They have a big reputation, and the gaming fans, they respect PlayStation, so they'll be willing to try out the new product. Second is endless possibilities in the future. Imagine going anywhere in the world and seeing the pyramids of Egypt or the Eiffel Tower, for instance, in virtual reality, and you don't have to go there yourself. Also, licensing the hardware. And when I say licensing the hardware, Oculus is going to license the hardware to other console manufacturers to kind of, in a sense, become like PlayStation, how we created the Morpheus project. And 3D modeling is going to be blown out of the water, because 3D is not going to be replaced with 3D modeling with you being in 3D as well. That means no more mouse, no more keyboard to make 3D objects. And also going beyond gaming. First, it goes beyond gaming to make anything, what you imagine, you get to create anything you imagine. And basically, the possibilities are endless once again. Business aspects, real estate. Real estate can be sold without you being in that state, in that particular area where the real estate is being sold. Disorder treatments, people with post-traumatic stress disorder can go through the recovery process and understand their disorder and better compensate with how they deal with it in the future. And just as a summary of basically everything in the Oculus company, they had a humble beginning. They started off as a bunch of guys who created a product like no one ever seen before, and the Kickstarter program was a very big boost that helped them out. And the Facebook bot as well is going to contribute a lot of things to that as well. And yeah, the future is